Hi there, and welcome back. In this video, we're talking about time zones. If you've never heard of a time zone before, that's a bit strange, but a time zone is essentially a slice of the world where it is a time at any point in time, and the time differs between other time zones. That's essentially what they are. So there's a lot of time zones. There's a lot of countries in the world, and of course, the time here in the UK is not the same time as in, for example, Madrid. It's not the same time as in Shanghai. So the times are different, of course, because we generally want there to be sunlight during the day, and we generally want it to be dark during the night. So not every country is light during the same time. Some countries are dark when here it is light, and so forth. So the time varies depending on where you are in the world at any given point. So some countries have actually many time zones. For example, the United States has a few time zones. As you go from left to right, it's a very large country. So sometimes the time changes when you are within the same country. That's fine. However, some very large countries only have one time zone. For example, India is an example. Which can be a bit strange because, of course, when you are at the leftmost part of the country, it is a given time, and if you were to teleport to the rightmost side of the country, it may be dark, but it's still the same time. Normally, the difference between two adjacent time zones is of 1 hour. That's just the most common thing. So, for example, I am in one time zone here in the UK. The adjacent time zone is sort of European West time zone, like Madrid and Germany. And the difference between here and there is 1 hour. However, something that a lot of people don't know is that sometimes the difference between two adjacent time zones can be less than that. It can be 15 minutes, it can be 30 minutes, it can be 45 minutes. So, time zones are not all that stable. Also, some countries pick out a time and a time zone because it suits them sometimes politically, sometimes to be in the same time as neighbor countries that they have good relations with, so forth. So the time zone is not really, or it is sort of depending on your position in the world, but it's not really dependent on your position in the world. So it is dependent on the country that you're in, essentially. So what time is it right now? My computer says it is 2018, February 11th at 10:34 a.m. But of course, to you, if you were watching this live right now, to you that might be a lie. For example, if you were in America at this time, the time could be 2 a.m. So this is a lie unless I tell you where I am. If I tell you where I am, then I'm not saying that the current time is 10:34 for you. I'm just saying the current time is 10:34 for me in my current location. So the current time right now is 10:34 in UK London, and the time zone for this is called GMT. But it's actually 11:34 in Spain / Madrid, where the current time is Central Eastern. Or Central European. That's Central European time. I'm pretty sure that's Central European. Never mind. Central European time. However, it's 2:34 a.m. in San Francisco, which has PST, and it's 6:30 in China, in Shanghai, where they have Chinese Standard Time. So as you can see, that is the time right now. Any of those is correct, because I am telling you the time and also the time zone. That way, for you, when you know the time zone, you can convert my current time into your current time without a problem. So the question becomes, can you never speak of dates without mentioning a time zone? No, you cannot. However, there is a central reference point that everyone can use. Normally, when we don't say the time zone, we must imply it. We must say, we don't mention the time zone because this is the sort of the default time zone. And so that is UTC, which stands for Coordinated Universal Time. And yeah, I don't understand the acronym. But actually, that's also a sort of a lie. I understand the acronym. You can Google it if you're interested in what the acronym means. It doesn't mean anything. But nonetheless, there is a central reference point. So normally when we don't specify a time, that's because we mean UTC, which is the central time. And the central time here in UTC is based not on political reasons, so it doesn't depend on the country. It was decided, and it sort of depends on a few factors. So the central reference point is important because when we talk about time zones, like for example CET, we say that it is relative to UTC by 1 hour. GMT is relative to UTC by 0 hours, and so forth. So every time zone is related to UTC in how far away they are from it. UTC passes through Greenwich in the UK. So for date and times in Python, there are two types of date and time entities. There's the date and time object in Python that does not know about time zones, and that is called a naive date and time object. You can create one like this. You can say from datetime, import datetime, and do something like print datetime.now. That is going to give you the current time in your computer, but it's not going to tell you what time zone that's in. So, not that useful, I would say. Because, for example, if you were to save that into a file or a database, when you come back to it, you won't really know if that was the current time in your computer or the current time in somebody else's computer, and how that relates to the current time in your computer. So you don't know exactly what time it was. One date and time object that does know about time zones is called an aware object, because it is sort of more aware of the world around it. And in order to create one of them, you can do from datetime import datetime and time zone, and you can print the datetime now, but giving it the timezone.utc, and that's going to give you the current time in the UTC time zone, which, as I said, is the central time zone. As an aside, UTC is not actually a time zone, right? So it's just the central point, and in the Python datetime library, what we're importing here, it is treated as a time zone, but it's not actually a time zone. There is no country that uses UTC as their time. But it is the central reference point, and it's really an important thing. So in the next video, we're going to talk about dates and times in Python and how I advise that you work with them. Now, dates and times are a bit of a thorny issue and a bit of a difficult one at that. And there's a lot of different libraries that you can use to manage dates and times in Python. The built-in datetime library is pretty good, but it doesn't support some things and it supports other things. So there's always a bit of a trade-off to do between datetime libraries. If you find that what you want to do with dates and times is difficult with the included datetime library, feel free to look into other libraries which also can help you. An example of such a library is one called Arrow. That can be quite an interesting library to use as well. Nonetheless, in this course we're going to talk about what comes with Python, just because it is pretty powerful and it does a lot of the things we need, and which includes reading dates and times, understanding when a user types a date and a time, what it means, exporting dates and times and printing them out to users nicely, calculating dates and times, and for example, what time will it be tomorrow at this time, or what date will it be tomorrow at this time, and so forth. There's quite a lot of stuff we can do with the datetime library, so let's look into it in the very next video. I'll see you there.